Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and welcome to Diabetes Aware. For anyone that doesn't know, I am a Type 1 diabetic from Northern Ireland and I have been diabetic for 12 years, and in this video I want to share with you my diabetes journey story. I promise it won't take 12 years to tell the story, but I have included a lot of information, but mostly like the main points. But it probably will be a longer video, so hopefully you don't mind that. So before we get started, if you'd like to see more diabetes and mental health related videos, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, follow my social media, which will be in the description box below with other information, and also leave me any questions or videos that you would like to see on my channel in the comments below. Let's start at the beginning. I was diagnosed in March 2008 when I was 11. I am now 23. So as I said, I've been diabetic for 12 years. It was a few months before I started high school. So since the beginning of my diagnosis, it's been a difficult journey. A few weeks, possibly a few months before my diagnosis, I started to notice that I was getting very, very tired. To the point where I would come home from school and immediately go to sleep. I was also drinking an awful lot and hardly eating and getting up at night, constantly running to the toilet. So if you're aware of the symptoms of diabetes, you probably know that these are the biggest symptoms of diabetes. But let's not spoil anything, let's not jump ahead on, oh, what does Hannah have? So one weekend in March, I think it might have been the 5th or around the 5th of March, my mum and dad went away for just the weekend to Budapest to visit my uncle for my dad's 40th birthday. That weekend, my nanny and possibly my granda stayed and looked after me and my brother, and then on the Saturday I think I went and stayed with my auntie, and it was that weekend that my auntie noticed me hardly eating, constantly drinking and getting up at night to go to the toilet. That Monday morning after that weekend, my mum took me to the doctors and I went to the doctor, explained my symptoms, and they tested my blood sugar. For anyone that doesn't know, a normal non-diabetic blood sugar range is between 4 and 7.8 millimoles. Mine, when it was tested, was about 20 millimoles. Balloons fell down around me and the doctor turned to me and said, "Congratulations, you have a broken pancreas." I mean, that's not what happened, but it sounds more of a fun way of being like, "Hi, you're fucked." So as soon as my bloods were done, they pretty much were like, "Get the bloody hell to hospital right now." So I was immediately sent to the Royal Children's Hospital in Belfast. And this is kind of where my memory starts to remember bits and pieces of it. So while I was in the hospital, I was there for a week in a ward with other kids, I think other diabetics as well. And I basically learned how to take injections, take my bloggers. Bloggers is my new word. It's blood and sugars. Bloggers. Some diabetic vocabulary. So I learned how to check my blood sugars, take injections, all about this new condition that I had. At the time when I was first diagnosed, I think for maybe a year or so, I used syringes and vials of insulin, which are the worst things ever. I hate them because you weren't allowed to get air bubbles in it, and it was really like annoying to like draw the insulin into the syringe because it would sometimes get stuck. It was just a lot of hassle. Nowadays I use flex pens. So the insulin is already, well, you can get pens where you put the cartridges of insulin into it. I have the flex pens, which means these are pre-filled, and once this is done, I take the needle off and throw out this whole pen. You also can have pumps nowadays, which I'm still on a waiting list for one, but hopefully I won't have to wait much longer. Back when I was on syringes, I used to be on Nova Rapid and Insulatard, which were my bolus and basal insulin. So bolus is basically the quick-acting insulin that you take for carbs and correction doses, and then your basal is basically your background insulin. When I was on syringes, I used to have to mix both of my insulins at night And I hated that because obviously, as I said, you weren't allowed to get air bubbles in it. So if you got air bubbles in it, like you couldn't put it back into the vial of insulin because it was already mixed. So it was like you had to do it really, really slowly. I hated it. This was also back when I had set doses. So nowadays I do carb counting. I did the Daphne course last year, the year before. And basically I can eat whatever I want and take however much insulin I need to cover that food. I might make a video on that, I don't know, but basically back in the day I used to have set doses, and it meant that I was only allowed to eat a certain amount each meal, which is why my blood sugars were always really bad, because I snacked a lot. Like, I would snack more than I eat meals. Pretty much from the first night I've given myself my injections. I think they give me 1 or 2 during the day, and then that night they were like, do you want to try? And I was like, absolutely, because I didn't like not being in control, and that's still something that's very apparent with me. So I've always taken my own injections. From there, the week included PowerPoints on like a computer learning about diabetes. So I actually remember one part of this. I remember there was a question and it had like cartoon drawings of kids, and the question was, which out of these kids has type 1 diabetes? And the point of the question was that you weren't supposed to be able to tell. But maybe me. I remember learning that diabetics can get, poor vision because like poor control and your vision starts to go. And I also know that leading up to my diagnosis, my eyesight was getting worse and I started to wear glasses. So in my head, I was like, there's a kid with glasses. And I was like, they're the diabetic. And my dad was like, no, you're not supposed to be able to tell. And I was like, no, they're the diabetic. Like, I was really persistent on my answer being like this really smart answer that people probably didn't think of, but obviously I was wrong. But I was like, they've got glasses, so it's clear that they are. Obviously nowadays people wear levers and pumps, so it's pretty obvious who the diabetic is nowadays. But back then it was like you couldn't tell who was diabetic. But maybe me was like, this is a smart answer, I'm really smart, but no one else has thought of this. So after that week I was released back into the wild and I was given this new independence of being a diabetic. I remember my primary school and then when I went to secondary school being really, really good with my diabetes. I remember my P7 teacher was so good about helping me with my diabetes. I'm only realizing now that I'm looking back how great she was with my diabetes, because I went to a school trip for like a week not long after I was diagnosed, and we weren't allowed our phones, so she let me go to her room like every night and ring my mum. She would always make sure to message my mum giving her updates on me, and I would always go to her room to take my injections and stuff. So she was so great about helping me with my diabetes. And then in secondary school I remember they had a meeting with my diabetic nurse and my head of year to like put in place like where to put my hypo treatment stuff and like having a room to go to if I wanted to do my injections. Although at the time I don't think I took lunchtime injections. I think I took morning, dinner, and then the evening one. But then eventually I started taking lunchtime ones because they were like, if you want better control, you should take one at lunch. And I was sort of like, okay, because I didn't really want to take injections at lunch, because I actually remember I didn't use that room that they provided me to go take my injections because I already felt like the outsider and different from everyone else. So the idea of going to a room to inject was just like, that makes me too different, I don't want to do that. An iconic memory that I have from primary school was actually when I returned to school after being in hospital. Everyone in my class knew I was diabetic. They all wrote in a card and sent it to the hospital when I was diagnosed. And I remember 2 guys in my class, in fact one of them was my crush for years, and now that I'm looking back I'm like, ew. They saw me ran away and started shouting, "Run away from disease girl," and hid behind a bench. And I remember laughing about it, and I kind of do laugh about it now, but at the same time, what assholes. Like, No wonder I'm fucked up. No, but like, it's one of those situations where it's like, it did make me think, do I have a disease? Is there something wrong with me? But at the same time, I kind of laughed it off to try and cope with it. That's something that I do, is laugh about things and joke about my problems. But at the same time, you kind of have to laugh about things or else you will cry. Now, to sum up a majority of my diabetic life, I was a very terrible diabetic. I hated being diabetic. I remember I always used to say that I wish that I wasn't diabetic. I hated testing my blood sugars, and if I did test them, which was very rare, I would never record them because they would always be high anyway. And I would even forget to take my injections, which would make me feel really, really awful, because if any of you have had high blood sugar, you know how it feels. You feel terrible. So not taking your injections is stupid because it makes you feel awful and it's not good for you either. Looking back, I'm really annoyed at myself for letting myself get to that point and not look after myself. But at the same time, pretty much when I was diagnosed with diabetes is when my mental health started to decline, and I spent so many years not dealing with it. So I think diabetes and mental health just sort of messed me up a lot. I remember in first year, I attempted to overdose on insulin. This is not the last time that I do this. You'll hear in a little bit that I have a history of doing this. I went to a counsellor in first year, and the counsellor helped me a lot, and I was feeling better for a little bit, but my history of poor control, overdosing, and counselling was only the beginning. In 2013, or around there, I became very, very ill. I started vomiting black. I got a pain in my side, and my bloods were really, really high. My mum and my granddad drove me to A&E at the Children's Hospital, and as soon as they looked at me, they put me immediately into a cubicle and put me on a drip. I was getting my bloods drawn and my blood sugar checked every hour. I remember at one point I needed the bathroom, and they asked me if I needed a wheelchair, and I was like, nah, I'm fine. I walked literally a few steps to the bathroom, went to the bathroom, and as soon as I got out of the cubicle, I vomited, and then they had to wheel me back because I was so weak to walk back. And after a few hours of being in A&E, I was then moved up to intensive care. I don't know how long I was there. I pretty much slept the majority of the time I was there. But I was then moved up to a ward, and yeah, that was when I found out that basically what was happening to me was a thing called DKA, diabetes ketone acidosis. That was kind of the moment when my diabetes became very real and scary. I will be honest that my control didn't become much better after that, but it did make my mum and dad very scared and come to realization that my diabetes is a lot more serious than what we realized, and it did force me to sort of get a little bit better at my control, but still not like 100%. I remember my mum actually saying to me that she always used to check up on me at night to make sure that nothing had happened to me in my sleep. And realizing that now, I'm like, it makes me upset that I let myself get that bad and get to that point, because not obviously I'm the one that's affected by diabetes. Like, if I don't take my injections, if I'm not controlling it right, I'm the one that's affected by it. But when you are young or you have a family of your own, you realize that your diabetes affects the people that care about you, because they have to see you go through all those difficult times. In 2015, around the time of my GCSEs, I became severely depressed and very, very anxious. I'm a lot more open nowadays about mental health. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I always talk about this, but I used to keep things bottled up a lot. Anything to do with mental health, anything to do with my diabetes, I kept it to myself. And As sad as this sounds, I used to go to the bathroom every day throughout GCSEs and throughout A levels and cry to the point where I couldn't leave the bathroom. I would literally be so anxious that I couldn't leave. And I remember at one point in the bathroom literally sitting there going, why me? Why do I feel like this? Why am I alive? And yeah, it's really sad. Around this time I started to self-harm, and the only escape that I could find from reality was watching YouTube. I watched a lot of Shade Hards and Minecraft videos, which I know sounds stupid, but I know some of you will relate to this in that YouTube is like a great escape from everything that's going on in the world. It's a distraction from all the problems. It's a distraction from my mental health and my diabetes. So I would just always be watching YouTube. I love YouTube for being there for me in a really pathetic way. It was there for me when I needed it, because I just hid everything from everyone else. So I would just watch YouTube and laugh at things that made me laugh and forget about everything that was going on. I continued to struggle for many, many years after that. I still look back and wonder how I did GCSEs and A levels and then went to uni. Like, it blows my mind that I managed to do that. It wasn't until my second year of uni that I actually got help, and that was encouraged by my lecturers at my course. I did cinematic arts at Ulster University in Derry. Victoria and Murat are legends. They are amazing, but they also care so much about people's mental health. They were literally like, if you need extra time, if you need the deadline extended, you know, they were like, prioritize your health, your mental health comes first. They were so great, and I will forever be grateful for them and my old course director, who encouraged me to go to student support and gave me so much support. I went to student support, and I think it was CAMS or Aware NI or something. I went to a counselling thing, but it was a different sort of counselling. It was almost like psychology, but it was basically in this building, like the top floor of a building in Derry, and it was these different rooms that were like living rooms, and it was just this woman who would sit on a sofa with like a notepad, and I would sit on the other sofa, and we would just have a conversation, and it would just feel like you were having a conversation with a friend, but then it would lead to something more deep, and I would just like share everything with her. And I find that so helpful, because I spent so long bottling things up that I was able to like share everything with this person, and they were able to help me. So things were starting to look up from that point. 2018 to 2019 I define as my breakdown years. I might make a more in-depth video about this in the future, but basically it involves drink, breakups, shitty people, violence, and suicide attempts. This wasn't the first time that I had obviously overdosed or attempted to and had been admitted to hospital. It also wasn't the second time. It has been the last time, but I get so upset and embarrassed at myself for letting myself get to that point and do that and waste NHS's time, waste a bed because I took alcohol and decided that I wanted to be dead. That was like the recurrent theme. But then I also look back at it feeling sorry for myself, because I can't believe that I went through so much and let myself get to that point. And yeah, like getting to a point where you don't want to be alive anymore sucks. No matter what the reason is, like you could think that your reason for dying or wanting to die is stupid. Like, I had a breakup and I'm like, oh, I want to die. It sounds stupid, but all of us deal with things differently. We're all different. Our emotions are different. How we deal with things is different. So don't ever feel bad for feeling bad. I'm happy to say that that was my last overdose attempt. And since then, I've been getting better. My doctor has been amazing throughout my mental health journey. She has referred me to counselling and put me on antidepressants and anti-anxiety tablets, which have helped a little bit. As of September, October, I have also been attending psychology. I was referred by my endo at the hospital to this psychologist who specialises in diabetes. Mark Davies is like the best person, and psychology is the best thing that I've ever done. Like, it's so good. It's so interesting. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I found out how much my diabetes affects my mental health and vice versa. And it's just so interesting and so good. And I love going to psychology. I've also, as of just before lockdown happened, I volunteer at Our Lives, Our Voices, which is a project run by Diabetes UK. And it's basically where Type 1 diabetics come together and create programs, art, videos, events for young people with type 1 diabetes, and also raise awareness about diabetes. These people have inspired me and motivated me so much. I've never had friends that are diabetic. I actually met one of the girls. She actually acted in my final film at uni, Holly. I will link her video below because she actually is the reason that I was inspired to do this video. I found out that she was diabetic and I was like so excited because I'd never met anyone diabetic apart from whenever I went to the hospital. And she actually told me about the Our Lives project, and I'm so happy that I done it. I have gained so much confidence in myself. I have achieved so much. One of my artwork pieces, which I'll put here, is being turned into a Libra sticker, and there's just so much exciting things happening, and I've achieved so much, and I've gotten so much better about controlling my diabetes, and I've never been so happy. Like, I hope that you can see how happy and confident and motivated I am. I've never felt like this before in my life. I really wanted to share the lowest points of my mental health and diabetes journey because right now I have never been so happy and confident and motivated in all my life in terms of mental health and diabetes. In 12 years of diabetes, I went from denial and hatred for it and feeling awful to feeling strong and confident and proud to be a diabetic. With a chronic illness, it's easy to get tired and unmotivated and struggle and get to the lowest point. It's an everyday battle, and when your diabetes isn't right and your sleep isn't right and your mental health isn't right, it just breaks you, basically. You don't have to go through this journey alone. There is always going to be someone that wants to listen and wants to help. It took me a long time to realise that, and I wish that I could go back to my past self and be like, check your blood sugars, take your injections, look after yourself, and talk to people. Sharing with people that care and talking to people that understand what you're going through helps so much. You don't realise how much it helps until you actually do it. It's okay to give yourself a break, and it's okay to like have bad blood sugars. Nobody is better than anyone else or worse than anyone else or is an expert on diabetes. I have found looking back at the things that I have achieved and gone through is a great way of motivating me. But looking back at how much strength it takes to be a diabetic, how much strength you need to have a chronic illness, to get up every day and look after yourself, it takes immense strength and motivation to do that every day. I like to think that the universe chose me to have diabetes because it knew how strong I was, and I needed to say that. I hope that my channel, whether you are a diabetic or not, you can gain something from it. I hope that you know that you have support here. Through this channel, I want to raise awareness about diabetes and tell my story, but I also want to give tips and advice and support to other diabetics. I don't want anyone to feel how I felt for 10 years of my life. If I can go from being a girl that cried every day in a bathroom, not wanting to be alive, to someone that is strong, confident, and sharing her story in videos, and also has been in the Belfast Telegraph, I believe anyone can feel the true beauty of life and find confidence in their self. but it's okay to go at your own pace. It's your decision on what you do, how you look after yourself, and whether you talk about things and get help or not. It's okay to go at your own pace if you need to. I do apologise for this video being very, very long, but I hope that I've included the key points of my diabetes story and that you have found it interesting and helpful. I do encourage other diabetics to make videos talking about your diabetes story as well, or even share your diabetes story in the comments below. I would love to hear other people's story and get to know you as well. Please feel free to like the video and check the description box below for social media links and other information, and also subscribe if you would like to as well. I will hopefully see you very soon for another video. Stay safe and be diabetes aware. I still don't know if that's a cringy ending or not. Is that too cheesy? I don't know. Bye!